masculine, feminine, non-binary energy update. We are going to start today with the masculine headspace. We are going to be utilizing for the masculine headspace the tarot of the divine. Can I please get 3 cards for the headspace of masculine? We've got 2 coming out quickly, 1 coming out slowly. First 3 cards we see today. First card we've got is the 9 of coins in its upright, in combination with our wheel of fortune in its reversal, in combination with the 7 of wands in its upright. Let's talk a little bit about the full moon that we've got coming up right now. Vulnerability central. This energy right now, I was talking about this right before we started the podcast. The thing about this energy that we have to be very, very conscientious about is it's already navigating from a space of deep sensitivity. Okay. I know that we're out of retrograde season, but it's really important to notate the fact that there are still some planets that are going through a retrograde, and they're very significant planets. Jupiter is still in retrograde in Cancer. Jupiter is often the sign that works upon the perception of the self. So feeling a lot of insecurity as it relates to the perception of the self. We also have Uranus that is retrograded back into Taurus. Uranus can often be the sign work that helps us navigate through change, potentially even the positive change that we aspire and desire within ourselves. But what do we have with the fact that we had Uranus pulling back into Taurus? It's a lot like that slingshot energy. It's that feeling of something where you build frustration because it doesn't feel like it's moving fast enough, or it's moving at the speed that you would aspire or desire it to. To add to that feeling of intensity, we've got Mercury that is sitting behind Venus and Mars. And as I've mentioned, while we're not necessarily going through a Venus in retrograde cycle proper, the energy of Venus between Mercury and Mars can create a feeling that is very akin to a Venus in retrograde cycle. So feeling the difficulty in relationality to the perception of the self, the internal perception of the self, the internal mirror of the self that sometimes feels like it gets clouded or foggy versus, or potentially the way others perceive us. It's a conversation on the observation that when another person is trying to project upon us, there's very little we can do that feels like it's the energetic right thing to do. But what we see that's happening right now is for a lot of the masculine energy, and again, this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to, there's a lot of this work that we're seeing in relationality to inner child healing. And this is just a reminder that inner child healing is not the capacity or the modality by which you're working to heal something when you were 6. Inner child healing is healing from the version of the self that thought they knew everything, right? It's healing from the version of the self that thought they knew everything. So there may be a lot of those modalities that we see that are arising right now that may be working through the space of vulnerability, right? The gift that our vulnerability is, because when we find vulnerability, that is the door to expansion, right? The only way to energetically expand is if one doesn't feel like one knows everything, because the feeling of knowing everything is a limitation point. It's a static state. But when we come into the space of vulnerability, it creates the ability of things becoming energetically possible. It's being able to effectively allow the more towards ourselves. So we see that for a lot of those relationships, this is a lot of the masculine that's either doing that work on the inside so that they can build it forth on the outside, the internal process of understanding the self that is the greatest gift to counterpart connection. Because when we understand ourselves, we don't shock or disturb or frighten someone in relationality to what we energetically find there. This is moving towards feminine right now. And for feminine right now, we are going to be utilizing the Tarot del Fuego for the headspace of feminine. Can I please get 3 cards, please, for feminine headspace? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. We've got the Empress card in its reversal in combination with our 7 of Cups in its reversal, in combination with our 10 of Swords in its reversal. So I'm not surprised to see the 10 of Swords there, because this is a pathwork that we see that for a lot of the feminine may be feeling like pathwork of completion. The thing about it, and I need to point this out, the thing we have to understand in relationality to the process of the self is there's no completion, right? The work of the self is ongoing. It's a perpetual state of arrival. It's a perpetual state of moving closer towards something. And so I feel like for a lot of the energy right now, and I keep on seeing the hard part as we keep moving closer to this full moon in Venus is not allowing the energetic sensitivity to effectively cloud or distort what is actually energetically happening. Because the thing is, I keep on hearing transformation. Transformation is not an overnight process. It happens slowly. And so one of the things I'll say for a lot of the feminine energy that's feeling this, especially with that Empress 7 of Cups in its reversal and the 10 of Swords, is if this is a modality by which you're getting frustrated at the self in relationality to one's own like direction, I want you to take a moment to chart your progress. I want you to take that moment to chart the progress. I want you to take the moment to chart how far you've come, right? Because the journey to perfection is ongoing. It's never ending. And we sometimes have those modalities or those experiences by which we feel like we're spinning our wheels, right? And that's the hard thing that we see that's potentially happening right now in this energy, right? We've got Venus, right? We've got Venus between Mercury and Mars. We've got Uranus in Taurus, and we've got Jupiter in retrograding, and we've got Jupiter in Cancer retrograding. So that can create the feeling of spinning wheels, right? Nothing you feel like you're doing is picking up or sticking, right? So that's why it says like you have to be energetically patient with yourself as it relates to what it is that one is setting one's own intention towards, right? Slow and steady, right? Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm saying slow and steady, and even me saying slow and steady is abrasive, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now moving towards non-binary energy, and we're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck for the headspace of non-binary right now. 3 cards, please. Death card in its upright, Page of Cups in its reversal, and the 6 of Wands in its upright. So let's talk a little bit about the energy that we're seeing here, because the thing is, this is a continuation of something that we've been reading for in this energy right now. And it's a continuation of understanding. This is exactly what we've been seeing with a lot of this energy. And this has been coming through every time Saturn and Neptune wake up in Pisces. Like every time they come out of that retrograde, it's a reminder that not to all feelings are alike, right? And it's a conversation on the fact that the only feelings we need to honor are the feelings that we've refined our emotions upon, right? The observation or the understanding that no two feelings are alike, because the feelings that are fortified are the feelings that are refined, the feelings that have directions attached to them. The difference between divesting oneself of their emotions, right? I have this feeling, now it's your problem that I have the feeling, right? Versus the healthy emotions that feel like they have directions attached to them. I feel like this, so I think we should do that. Is a life-changing power of being able to have profound conversations on the emotions that feel like they get us somewhere, right? Those hard conversations by which we climb, versus the modality by which we often come into the space by which we work through something and make something worse by the articulation of the emotions. And I feel like it's requiring those heavy conversations, right? It's the disambiguation point of the emotions. Like, what are all these emotions are for? The emotions are not something that we work to get rid of. They're supposed to be there. Emotions tell us, like, emotions are the coordinates of our heart. But you have to understand, we always have to make sure that our heart is in the right place. So when we're working on the coordinates of the heart and our heart is in the right place, it's not just enough to have emotions and say, I'm following my heart. What if your heart's broken, right? Like, what if your compass is out of whack, right? The ability that we effectively identify in relationality to understanding if our heart's in the right place is being able to understand what our emotions are asking for, right? The understanding of the self that allows us to be able to understand if there's something that we need to repair within, right? Or if there's something that we need to work better without. And that's what's beautiful, because it talks about the fact that we're constantly in the space of tending, right? It's not just about following our heart. It's about being a tender of our heart, right? Because when you have to understand that the word tender comes from tending, right? And when we tend things, we attend to them. We pay attention to them. We become invested in understanding it. So when we become the tenders of our heart, it allows us to be able to impart to others what we find there, but also what we sometimes don't impart to others, right? It's an inside outside problem. It's understanding, like, and this is what we see, right? Something that we feel, right? Doing the work to understand how we feel, to understand if the change is something that is required outwards, right? The transformation outward, or if it's transformation inward. Now, continuing to get clarification, moving back towards masculine energy, can I please get 3 cards for the masculine heart space? We're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. 3 cards, please. 1, 2, 3. We've got here the Knight of Wands in its upright. We also have here the Knight of Pentacles in its reversal. And we have the Strength card in its reversal. So what are we effectively seeing in relationality to the masculine heart space? Again, bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of night energy. A lot of night energy in the heart space of masculine right now. And this is a conversation. When we see a lot of night energy in the heart space of masculine, it's a conversation of moving towards the higher self. Who do I aspire to be? Who do I aspire to be? Who do I aspire to become? Right? What is that energetic what is that energetic journey of becoming? And so we see that for a lot of the energy, and this is what we effectively see, like a lot of the work, and it's beautiful too, because this is something that I was seeing more in alignment with feminine over the last few days. And it feels like the work is now moving towards masculine. And that's a good thing to see. We like to see the harmony by which the messages move back and forth through the frequencies, right? When we stop worrying about comparing, we start becoming, right? When we stop worrying about comparing, we start becoming. Why would you diminish yourself by comparing yourself to anyone when you could be energetically exquisite, right? When you could be the energetic template, when you can be the energetic ideal. And this is why we talk about the space of ideals, because the space by which we energetically compare ourselves is often working towards the feeling. I feel like this is masculine internalizing the journey of masculinity, right? Not masculine feeling like I need to figure out where masculine is, understanding that masculine carries masculine in them everywhere they go, right? The modality of understanding that the true masculinity isn't for show. It is the observation of how we show up, right? How we are perceived, who we aspire to be, right? The way that we energetically hold ourselves, that let others see what is within us, right? That is also the reflection of without, right? This is what we always want to see. Like, this is the work that we often experience when we're doing work in Cancer, because it's a conversation of the healthy ego. I personally love Jupiter in Cancer for this reason, because I love the Cancerian journey, because it talks to us about what a healthy ego is, right? There's this misconception that we need to shed the ego, as if you could. As if you could shed your ego, as if it's as easy as taking off a coat. You can never shed your ego. And the funny thing about shedding your ego is when you say you have, you've got another one underneath it, right? This is what we see with the Cancer journey of the crab shedding its shell. And guess what's underneath the shell? There's another shell, right? It's the understanding that the journey of working through the ego is not about shedding it. It's finding one that one can be proud of. And not just one that can be proud of, but one that fits like a glove within the thing that's within us, right? The modality by which the expression of the outside ego is the same as the internal soul, right? The healthy shield energy, because when the shield gets too big, you can't see anything beyond it, right? When there's too much of a shield there, then nothing gets through to it, right? We build this wall of protection around ourselves in the realm of our energetic personality, and it feels like nobody can get in, and we are trapped inside of it. So we see that for a lot of the energy doing that work, working through, I keep on hearing, and this is what I like, right? This is what I like with the Knight of Wands and the Knight of Pentacles, because this says to me the razor thin ego is what I keep on seeing. The sleek, streamlined ego, right? The ego that is there, the ego that is there, but just enough, right? Just enough that it's there to protect the things that are important, right? That allows for flexibility, that allows for adaptability. And so we see that for a lot of the energy doing that, like I keep on seeing this is masculine going on the streamlined ego journey. But it's like, but that in the self is the work that we do towards a healthy spiritual journey, but also in the space of the gift of relationship. Because what happens when we have that streamlined ego? It's the absolute delight in being able to get to know one another because we discover that what's outside is very similar to what's within, right? It just keeps on going. It's the same all throughout. So we see that for a lot of the energy, it starts with vulnerability. It sounds so easy. It's the hardest thing to do. But this is a lot of the energy of the masculine articulating their efforts to try to do so. Moving towards feminine energy, again, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to. Utilizing the tarot of the divine for the heart space of feminine. 3 cards, please. 1, 2, 3. We've got here the 5 of Swords in its upright. 4 of Wands in its upright. And we also have the Tower. So there's a lot of energy here, and we got to work through this right now with feminine energy. And I got to point out, I don't mind seeing a Tower in the heart space of feminine here, particularly in relationality to the other cards that we're seeing towards this. Because this is a continuation of what we see in relationality to feminine, working through the modality and the ability of understanding the weaponized state of comparison, right? That often, I keep wondering, often the weapon that's thrown at feminine is comparison, right? Because what happens when feminine gets in the modality of comparison, right? It's the modality by which another person feels, like the modality by which another person feels that heavy weight or that heavy force of by which we feel that another person does not see us beyond the lens of how they perceive another. Right? This is why we have to heal ourselves from the illusion of comparison. How toxic comparison is. Because when we're working through comparison, we can't see our exquisite. We're constantly looking this way instead of up, right? You're constantly craning your neck instead of looking upwards, instead of being able to see the self. So I see that for a lot of the energy, this is the energy of the feminine working towards healthy sense of centering and understanding the difference, right? Understanding the difference between centered in self and self-centered. Now, what is the difference between centered in self and self-centered? Centered in self-centered is the modality and experience by which one does not experience anything, no empathy, absolutely no energetic empathy for anyone or anything in the world beyond the perceived experience of the self, right? It is and one of the ways that you can usually tell that one is moving through something that is self-centered is something that you want for the self, but you don't want for anybody else around the self, right? Centered in self is having a healthy compass. Centered in self is understanding what is in one purview of what one is working on, what one understands, what is the shape or intention in relationality to what one is trying to experience or articulate. And in the modality of doing so, right, it is the effective orbiting space by which we understand the nature of how others perceive us and how we see ourselves. And even understanding that sometimes we see misperceptions there. That on a healthy experience, you're going to find those that misperceive you. And as long as that doesn't ring true, right? As long as another's misperception of you doesn't ring true, it's a projection. It speaks more about how they feel about themselves than it ever had to do with you, right? And when you are in the space, like here's the thing about it, when you're in the space by which you're working on yourself, never will you experience more projection. Never will you experience more projection, because it's that understanding that the projection that others feel as you're working on the self articulates and speaks a lot towards how they feel about themselves. And so I feel like there's a lot of the energy of feminine that's working towards having composure, particularly and especially in relationality or in situations by which they often feel like they have to navigate others' misperceptions of them. But they're doing so with a state of recognition and composure, right? The understanding, right, of what is and is not a healthy note, right? And this is why knowing the self, it's a culmination of those moon relationships, the understanding of knowing the self that is the highest gift that we bring to things. Because when someone gives us a note and we know ourselves, we can be like, oh, yeah, that's a me thing, or that is not a me thing. That's a them thing, right? The observation of being able to ascertain healthy notes and non-healthy notes, it happens with the understanding knowledge of the self. So I see a lot of the feminine working on the heart space because they're saying that there's no greater act of protection of the self than understanding the self. Because one is able to understand when you receive something from another, whether it feels like it's something beneficial, right? Something that another gives us out of a state of love or empathy versus something that feels like it's energetically detrimental, something that feels like it's springing forth from another person's projections of us. Moving towards non-binary energy, and we'll be utilizing the Tarot del Fuego right now for the heart space of non-binary. I've got 1 here. I've got 2 here. I've got 3 here. 3 cards. We've got the King of Swords in its upright. We've got the 9 of Pentacles in its upright. And we also have the 10 of Wands in its upright. I am not surprised to see the profundity of 10 cards in this spread today, given the fact that this is effectively the last reading we'll be doing for 2025. We've got a lot. I'm not surprised to see Wheel of Fortunes popping up. I'm not surprised to see Towers popping up. I'm not surprised to see 4 of Wands popping up. I'm not surprised at all to see so many 10 cards on the table, because I see that for a lot of the energy of the non-binary, it is working through the appreciation of one's own accomplishments, right? And I keep on getting here too. And the King of Swords that we see here, particularly in the Tarot del Fuego, often talks about how hard it is, right? Like, and this is what I keep on seeing. I feel like for a lot of the non-binary energy, the modality by which we experience something painful, but we don't let it change us, is the amplification of our own sense of self, right? Like that's what's important, because here's the thing about it, and especially for a lot of this energy, I feel like they often understand. It's the understanding of often understanding that when one is in one's authenticity, never will you become more of a projection magnet for others, like unhealed shadow work, right? Like that's what's so difficult when we're in our authenticity. It's the space by which everyone else's shadows, like anyone who hasn't done their shadow work, it often goes directly towards the energy that's in their authenticity. Because often those that do not have a lot of, who have not worked through their shadow work, don't, like, again, too big of an ego, right? The shell of the self that they feel like they're trapped within, so that then when they see somebody in the modality by which they're working through the space of trying to keep their ego streamlined, i.e., moving towards authenticity, it can create those modalities or experiences by which it brings a lot of energetic feelings up. So a lot of that feeling of hatred or anger, ill-placed, right? So what do we see that a lot of the energy is doing there? They're working on not allowing it to change them, right? This is why we always talk about we don't match energy. When someone is, there is nothing worse on this earth than you can possibly do when you understand that someone is projecting to you and all you do is match their energy. Because what does that mean? All you've shown them is that you lack integrity, right? All you've shown them is that you lack integrity, that anything they do they can bring you into any modality by just doing anything to you, because it's an integrity-free zone. So we see that for a lot of that energy working through experiences by which they're navigating those difficulty points, those painful moments, and observing the fact that they still carry them within, but they're not allowing those experiences to change them. What happens in that experience? They're understanding the profound expansion of the self, because they're going through the understanding. They're working through the understanding that you can have absolute empathy. You can have absolute empathy for how another person feels, but empathy does not create the fact that it's okay, right? Empathy does not make things okay. And this is what I keep on seeing that's happening for a lot of that energy. Working through the disambiguation of empathy and boundaries, right? Because you can often have like empathy and standards. Because when you have a lot of empathy, you need to work on having extra. You have to work on having extra standards. You have to do even more work because it's so easy to be able to feel the sense of sensitivity in relationality to the experiences of others. But to be able to have to feel that and at the same time be able to hold the energetic standard of the self, it almost feels like the energy that recognizes that their work is double. Right? But that's the work that they effectively gladly receive or gladly embrace because it's the observation of understanding that ability to feel the energetic empathy of others, but not allow it to effectively change the self, to be able to keep one's own energetic sense of self intact, even in the modality of feeling that empathy. I see that a lot of that work, like a lot of that energy, works very hard in recognizing that the work of understanding the self is what helps us anchor in relationality to navigating those empathetic journeys. So I feel like there's a lot of the energy that's either doing that work, moving into relationship, right? Holding empathy, but also holding very strong energetic standards, or they're articulating to counterpart big significant moments by which they had to learn those messages on their own journey. Now, continuing and moving back towards masculine energy, moving into the unconscious space of the masculine. And for masculine right now, we are going to be utilizing the Tarot del Fuego for the unconscious of the masculine. 3 cards to clarify, please. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got the Lover's card in its upright in combination with the World card in its reversal, in combination with the Knave of Pentacles in its upright. So let's talk a little bit about the doubts and fears that are potentially coming up right now for masculine as we move towards this Cancer full moon. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to. I feel like there's a lot of work that we see that's happening right now in the space of masculine as it relates to healthy partnership, as it relates to the healthy give and take that we're able to find as in counterpart connection. And particularly and especially in this continuation that we see with the World card in its reversal, I feel like, and this is just a reminder, I'm just going to kind of articulate this to masculine energy. If you are going through modalities and experiences by which you wish you could grab the past self and just grab the past self and articulate to them what you energetically know now, congratulations. I know it hurts. But I need to stress this. The wincing is how wisdom gets in. That's why we call it wisdom, because you usually wince as you receive it, right? The understanding, and this is why inner child healing can feel so difficult, because often inner child healing is not about who you were when you were way back before you didn't know anything. Often the indication that you're doing inner child work is you're mad at the version of the self that thought they knew everything. That is the inner child. That is the unhealed inner child. It is the unhealed inner child is the child that does not see the world from a place of curiosity, right? From a place of a desire to learn. It is the unhealed inner child is the inner child that becomes closed off because they're like, that's it, I'm done. Nope, I know better than all of you. You just got here. I know, but I know better than everybody, right? That is the unhealed inner child. It is not the inner child that gazes upon the world with a sense of wonder. It's the child that feels, it's the unhealed inner child that feels, it goes, I did it. Be like, what did you do? Right? It's those modalities or experiences by which we feel that sense of confidence that we often recognize later was characterized by a lack of understanding or some kind of sense of ignorance. And the understanding of that, being able to effectively receive that, it hurts. Right? It hurts when we come into those modalities, but it hurts because it's working. Right? Something that hurts is working. Like the modality by which we understand that there's something within ourselves that makes us feel pain to see, congratulations. That's where you start healing. So if especially, and I want to describe this because we've got that Cancer full moon coming up, and the Cancer full moon, the only thing we want to be conscientious about, Cancer full moon with Jupiter in Cancer can often create a lot of that energy by which we feel extremely vulnerable. right? We feel extremely hard on the self. The modality by which we've got Venus tucked between Mercury and Mars right now, the perception of the self, either how we perceive ourselves that feels like it's cloudy, or navigating someone's perception of us, which is so completely off. So completely off. That's just a result of their own projections. The only way we navigate a projection that hurts is if there's a grain of truth in it, right? And that grain of truth is where we begin to heal. That grain of truth is exactly where we start. And the ability to identify it and recognize it allows us the capacity to fix it. So I want you to be able to see the blessing, even in the modalities by which you're working through those vulnerabilities. Now, moving towards the feminine unconscious space, we'll be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck for the unconscious of the feminine. 3 cards, please. I'm not surprised to see that one. 3 of Swords in its upright falling out of the deck. 2 more, please. We've got the Page of Pentacles in its upright. And 1 more, please. We've got the 6 of Swords in its reversal. So this is very intriguing too, because for a lot of the energy we're seeing right now, let's talk about it. So the energy of feminine right now is, and I need to stress this. I see that there's a lot of feminine energy that is working to cleanse their tongue. And why do we see a lot of feminine energy working to cleanse their tongue? Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because when we are in the space, and this is what I keep on hearing, pay attention to the lesson. All right. We do not throw our bias towards any creed or gender, right? We don't throw it towards creed. We don't drive it towards culture. We don't articulate the fact that by which we articulate and say, all of that is this, all of that is that, right? The space by which we build bias is often the space of our own shape of ignorance. It's a space by which we say, I don't need to know more about it. This is the shape of all of it. We refuse that in every other context. Why do we make an energetic exception for gender? That when you articulate that you are desiring a perfect counterpart, and then all you do is talk about the negativity by which you find or arrive to the energy that you're working towards, you are literally creating an impossibility point. You're creating an X in your own manifestation journey. You can't say, I desire the perfect counterpart, but all of this gender is this, all of this person is that, all that I find there is trash, right? The modality by which we lose, you cannot say, I'm striving for something, but I've lost energetic hope. You can't bang on the keys of the negative as you're talking about the fact that you're trying to move towards the positive, right? And so I see that for a lot of the energy of feminine, understanding that you cannot operate in the space by which you say, I'm looking for something, but I've lost hope in finding it, right? When you give up on things, the modality by which you give up on things is often the space by which you articulate you've given up on things and then going, yeah, I don't know why I can find it. Oh yeah, all of that is, you can't say that you're looking for treasure and then articulate that everything you see is not that. The ability to effectively understand that we keep our hope towards the things that we aspire for. And that doesn't mean, right? That doesn't mean we feel energetically frustrated when we don't find it. It doesn't mean that we don't it doesn't mean that we don't have strong feelings in relationality to what we've experienced. But when we say when you use the word all, right? When you use the word all, you're basically saying and again, it's also the shape of your inner child healing, right? Because when you say that's it, I know it's all like that, you say, I've seen it all, right? You're literally saying to the universe, impress me, but I'm not going to be impressed. Right? So the ability of understanding our words are blessed as we move towards our manifestation goal. We don't talk about what we experience. We talk about what we aspire. And that doesn't mean, right? That doesn't mean that we paint the past with rose-colored glasses. We allow the orientation point in relationality to experiences that we've had that have disappointed us, that have hurt us, to shape the context of what it is that we're working to. But I keep on seeing that in order to do that, the first thing you have to eradicate is the hopelessness. You cannot say you want to go towards a manifestation goal and then say you're hopeless in relationality to what you esteem to effectively arrive when you find there. You have to say to the universe, surprise me. You have to say to the universe, surprise me. I still exist in a state of perpetual wonder. Thrill me Thrill me with what the future holds. Show me how good it can be. Continuing for a lot of the energy of the non-binary, bottom of the deck right now, bottom unconscious space, and we'll be utilizing the tarot of the divine for the non-binary energy. 3 cards, please. We've got the 9 of Wands in its upright. We've got the 8 of Cups in its reversal. And we also have the Ace of Swords in its reversal. So I feel like the thing I keep on seeing for a lot of the non-binary energy right now is working through the difficult pathwork of empathy with strong standards. Empathy with strong standards will often have you feeling very energetically isolated, right? That's what it feels like. Empathy with strong standards is like perpetual hermit mode. But here's the thing about it. I feel like a lot of the energy is just accepted that that's just a part of their experience, right? The modality by which one is able, I feel like there's an attunement point with a lot of this energy. Being able, like literally having to be able to be in the space of understanding another, because I keep on hearing it's not a choice, it was a survival instinct. I feel like a lot of this energy being like, did not come to this journey out of choice, came out of need. And I keep on getting, and that's the thing about it. This energy often navigates a space that others find them in that state, and they take an entitled opinion on them. And what is the shape of entitlement? And the shape of entitlement is seeing someone operating in a state of need and making the presumption that they're doing so out of choice. So for a lot of this energy, I almost feel like this energy has no other choice than to hold themselves preciously. They have gone through experiences by which they thought they were moving towards a manifestation goal with someone they cared about, but because that person hadn't done their work, it just became the place by which they took all their shadow work out on them. They potentially had to move away from situations by which they recognized that the issue in a relationship wasn't love, but someone who had not done the work effectively so that their love felt like love. So for a lot of this energy, I see that they tread very carefully, right? They move through situations and circumstances with a sense of patience, with a sense of determination. They are very, very energetically conscientious and cautious as to who they let in, because they've had experiences by which their empathy has been taken energetic advantage of. So what we effectively see for a lot of that energy is working through, like I keep on hearing, working through the modality by which they recognize that they have to move through life in a certain way, while even recognizing that even in the modality by which they move through it in that way, there are others who will perceive them and project upon them about the fact that they're being distant, aloof, right? Hard to get to know. And I keep on seeing that this energy is working through. Vulnerability is not for show. You can't just turn vulnerability on and off like a switch. The vulnerability that we find is something that is based off the mutual alignment of energy, and also the work that we do to allow ourselves energetically accessible to it. So I feel like for a lot of the energy, it is working on, I feel like a lot of this energy is working on being more vulnerable, but it's hard. It's what I keep on saying. It's hard because often when you're moving towards, and I keep on hearing that the issue with the vulnerability wound is sometimes it requires you to go straight in the direction, feeling like you're going straight in the direction of the thing that hurt you profoundly the first time, but being able to kind of have that trust fall in the universe with healthy energy that knows that they will energetically support you on your journey. Bottom of the deck right now for masculine, we have the Hierophant in its upright. Now, here's what I said, like this is the this is the issue, right? And I like to point this out. The funny thing for me when I read, I often connect the Hierophant with inner child healing. And the reason I connect the Hierophant with inner child healing is the inner child healing starts when we recognize that we don't know everything. And the Hierophant, let's be honest, the Hierophant is often a card that speaks upon, it speaks upon this fact of someone like pontificating or articulating upon it. We do the best that we can with what we know, right? And even in the space by which we understand, and this is why you'll often notice that those who are on the journey of wisdom will often be in the space by which they'll be correcting themselves. They'll be like, I know I said that before, but but I've learned something since, right? The ability to effectively understand, right? The ability to be adaptable in relationality to knowing something and then saying, I know more of it now. There's no greater blessing. And so we have to be very conscientious about this in relationality to how we navigate What happens when someone isn't energetically correct about something? It's a conversation on healthy discourse, right? And the space by which we can have healthy discourse is not the space by which we accuse each other if there's something that changes. The modality that's important is the energetic accountability that we're able to take in relationality to something that we're working on or improving upon. And so this is what I see a lot of the masculine energy doing. Again, bearing in mind that it's not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. The ability to come into, the ability to come into a point of being able to say, yeah, I was wrong about that, right? No, that was something I was not correct for, right? And because the modality by which one is able to effectively identify and articulate that is the moment and modality by which everything can change, right? Because when you sweep things under the rug, you trip on them again, right? But when you address something, when you articulate and you recognize that it's something that's you're working on, it begins to flourish, right? It begins to thrive. It begins to effectively become your energetic obsession. We've all had those moments, right? The thing you're not good on, the thing that you're not good at, that you become an expert on because you say, I need to get better at it. And it starts, right? It starts with the investiture in recognizing that there's room to grow. So I feel like this is a lot of the energy that's starting to understand that the ability to say, I don't know, is one of the most beautiful things that we have in relationality to the journey of strength, because that is the energy that says, I don't know, but I seek to learn. Continuing for feminine, we've got here the Two of Pentacles in its upright. And so for the energy of the feminine with the Two of Pentacles in its upright has a lot to do with navigating others in relationality to what they want from them. This is the issue that a lot of feminine has, right? Feminine energy recognizes that you could literally be doing all of the work for everybody. You could be doing everything under the sun. You could be bending over backwards. You could be doing everything. And there will be someone who is upset that you are not doting on them. In the modality by which feminine is literally doing everything, there will be someone going, you're not giving me enough energetic attention, right? like in the modality. And this is what the feminine is working to heal. You are going to disappoint people on your healing journey. There is no modality by which you will not be on a healing journey, and there will not be someone who's upset about the fact that you're on one, right? And the sooner that you recognize that, it does not become an issue about worrying about whether someone's upset, but understanding the reasons, because some energy deserves to be upset. If someone's being ridiculous, then they energetically deserve to be upset, because it's the observation of understanding that we energetically condone what we're trying to effectively work to heal to. It's the space by which we observe, right? The space by which we're energetically conscientious and observe. And we understand that a healthy healing journey is saying, I'm disappointing the right energy in the best way possible, right? The modality and experience by which we say, I'm disappointing energy in the best way possible is often the expression of saying, I recognize what my purpose is, and I understand what I can do, and I understand what another person has to work through. And that the sooner that the feminine energy works through that, the sooner, and it's not easy, right? It hurts because there is that modality by which others' false opinions of us or false narrative, it stings, right? But when we know ourselves and we feel that sting, it's not the sting. It's not the sting that again, unless there's a kernel of truth to it, right? Unless there's something there that we actually feel the need to energetically work on. And even in that, there's a blessing, right? Because if someone perceives us in the wrong way and we say, oh, I don't like that. Okay, that seems like it's kind of true. I should work on that, right? Being able to see the blessing even in others' projections of us. Even in others' projections of us, even if the projections aren't true, right? So this is almost a lot of the energy of the feminine that's working into the space of not just turning away from an energetic projection, but to looking at it. And that's what we talk about with shadow work, right? It's not just facing the unhealed parts of ourselves, but it's facing the unhealed parts that others throw at us. While for non-binary energy, bottom of the deck right now, we've got the Four of Cups in its upright. And the Four of Cups in its upright, and again, I'm not surprised to see that given the fact that we're kind of coming into the culmination point of the year. The Four of Cups in its upright talks about, and it's a continuation again of the difference between It's working through the entitlement journey. And I feel like a lot of the energy of the non-binary often works through the modality by which others feel. And never are we like, here's the thing about authenticity. A large portion of those that are in their authenticity had to find that authenticity to survive. They had to find that authenticity to survive. In a world that constantly makes us feel like energetic outcasts, in a world that constantly makes us feel that we are not supposed to energetically be here, right? The modality of working through the pathwork of conformity that articulates upon the energetic standard that we set, the gift that we find in our authenticity becomes the energetic foothold. It reminds us of our energetic purpose, because as our purpose is to find our exquisite here. Our purpose is to be able to understand and identify what makes us each energetically unique, and it exists within all of us. So for a lot of that energy, working into modalities or experiences by which another person sees them and says, why do you choose? Why do you choose to be like that? The misconception of another person seeing the desire to thrive and find oneself and looking at it and saying, why are you making those choices? It's almost like someone saying, why are you choosing to breathe? Right? The modality by which we feel the energetic pain of another person seeing us as if we're energetically choosing and selecting the things that we choose to be instead of moving closer to who we know ourselves to become. And so for a lot of the energy, that's why I feel like there's something about working through that, observing, not absorbing, paying close attention in relationality to another person's energetic ignorance. And here's the hard part about ignorance, right? Whenever we navigate ignorance, there's an opportunity, there is a door that is put before us, right? And the door that is put before us is either to push against the door to allow for energetic learning to come in, right? The modality of understanding by which another person, right, like working through the inner child healing, someone that does not recognize not only that they do not know, but that something that they articulated or amplified shows something that requires that work, right? The ability that we give each other to help one another on that energetic pathwork versus those experiences by which there is an intentional door that another person throws, right? The modality by which another person likes to, and I like to point out, versus the hostility, the energetic hostility that some assume in pretending that they don't know something while trying to intentionally hurt another. And that is the hard part that I see that happens for a lot of that energy, working through spaces or places where they encounter, right, a lack of understanding. And they need to do the work to understand and assess if the lack of understanding is coming from a healthy place, right? The healed inner child that says, please help me understand. I seek to know. Versus the understanding of someone that says, I'm going to pretend I don't know because I enjoy hurting you. And that in crucial difference, it's very hard to energetically ascertain sometimes. But this is why we see that a lot of that energy works very conscientiously in relationality to building connection with others. Because the identification point as to whether someone comes towards you in the former versus the latter is entirely tied to how well someone has done their own shadow work. Because the experience by which we don't project that sense of wanting to hurt another through the inquiry of the self to each other is the observation of how much we ourselves have matured, right? It is the observation of understanding the space by which we have effectively come into the understanding of the self, but even more so, the empathy that we hold to all of the energy that's around us. So that's what I keep on seeing as it relates to some of this energy. I keep on getting this energy, others potentially misconceiving them as aloof instead of being highly, 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 highly protective. They're highly protective of themselves. They're highly protective of their journey. They're highly protective of those they care about because they've had experiences by which another person tried to give the pantomime of obtuseness in the direction, but while they were trying to energetically hurt another in disguise. That is where we find all of the energy. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my site. So I would encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates prior to beginning today's daily collective reads. First and foremost, I would like to invite all of you to join me on a very special retreat that we will be hosting this August. We will be traveling to Italy, the birthplace of where the tarot was first discovered, to sharpen our tarot skills, but also to learn more about the culture by which the cards were able to find a place to flourish and thrive. We will be traveling to Rome, Tuscany, and Florence, and everyone who attends that retreat will not only have the opportunity to study cards with me, but will also have the opportunity of receiving a complimentary mentorship class where I will meet with you personally prior to the retreat to assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage, moving towards your tarot goals going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my stack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my online live schedule. I also want to invite you guys over to my stack to learn more as well about our next tarot class. Our next tarot class will be held on Thursday, January 15th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a study on the world card. If you are interested in becoming a part of that class program, you just need to become a monthly subscriber. Your monthly subscription to my stack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each and every month. You will also, as a monthly subscriber, have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library Class Archive. It's not necessary to catch up. I do my best to give you an update on everything we've studied prior to beginning that class, but the material is there for you to receive as you're ready to receive it. You'll also have access to a complimentary one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything we've learned and studied thus far. And if you become a founding member to my stack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, you'll also have access to over 20 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library Class Archive, and you'll also have the opportunity of receiving a complimentary mentorship class with me, where I will meet with you personally to assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage, moving towards your tarot goals going forward. One of the things I tried to do with these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. Definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us on those classes. And even if you don't become a subscriber, I would encourage you to follow me on the stack to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my online live schedule and my mystic meditation articles, which give you updates on what we've been seeing energetically. I'll be releasing one shortly on this full moon that we've got coming up. I also want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my students seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits. Also, for my students seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I'm also very happy to now offer dream interpretation readings, which can be purchased per dream or as a series. If you purchase the series, I would encourage you to start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or bi-weekly with that journal to be able to ascertain what is the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages. And we will do this again on Friday. Have a great day, everyone.